I'm going to turn it over to Professor Johnson here. I'll stop sharing my screen. So he can share a little bit more about our aviation program. And to be very honest with you, this is a very big reason that I came to Lynn because I'm mildly obsessed with all things aviation. And so I'm hoping Dr. Johnson can tell you a little bit more.
There, now I can hear you. Good. Let me see if I can do this. This will be the first time I've ever shared a screen, so let's see what happens. We're still gonna figure out where it is. Okay, I think it's this one. Share, okay. So it should say Lynn University's College of Aeronautics on there. Let me see if I can get this to go. Of course, I can't figure out how to get the darn thing to actually come up. Well, anyhow, so I'm the Dean of the College of Aeronautics. Just a little background. I graduated from the Air Force Academy, like we had mentioned before, and was on active duty in the Air Force flying. I flew the A-10 and taught in the T-37, and then flew the F-4G, Wild Weasel, a little bit over Iraq. Went from there to Wright Research Laboratories up in Dayton, Ohio, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and worked on some advanced avionics for the laboratory there. And finished out my active duty career on the island of Oahu in Hawaii as the program element manager of A-10 and F-16's programs for the Pacific Air Forces. Went to work one day on at Hickam and out processed from active duty, got on an airplane, flew overnight, and came to Lynn University the next day and started out as the Dean of the School of Aeronautics. And 20 years later, I'm here in a webinar talking to India. So it's been kind of a strange road to get where I am, but over the years we grew from 18 students to about 110 undergraduate students. One airplane we now have 8. 8, and it's about 25 in the MBA program, and then another probably 50 that just fly with us. So it's grown nicely over the years, and it's been a pretty good ride. Let's see if I can get this to go down. Doggone it. Okay, one more. So now does it say academics, Rosalie?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, cool. Because I guess my screens are different. But anyhow, so in the aeronautics program, we have 5 majors. One that you see there on the bottom is from the College of Business and Management. That's the original major we had for the first probably 12 or 13 years I was here. We were part of the College of Business and Management, and that degree is actually a business degree where the students take the core curriculum like everybody does, so math, arithmetic, it's called the dialogues of learning that Rosalie had talked about. And then they take, they take a business core, just like they would in any business college. So it's economics, finance, some entrepreneurship, ethics, that kind of stuff. And then they apply that business skill set to one of 15 different industries. So there's marketing, e-business, fashion and retail, hospitality management, and aviation management happens to be the one that we would offer as far as academically. And then, and that just takes that business skill set and shows students how to apply it into the aviation industry. Along with that, we had the flight school, which was the small building that was just on the picture there. And this is the back side of it where we have the aircraft parked. And the students could take all their flying training needed to be able to become a professional pilot. So all the way up from private pilot, instrument pilot, to commercial multi-engine instrument. And then we also now can do the certified flight instructor instrument, and then multi-engine instrument instructor. Once we grew big enough, about 6 or 7 years ago, we kind of split off from the College of Business and became our own academic unit as the College of Aeronautics. And what this allowed us to do was come up with 4 new aviation-specific majors. And those are listed up there. Aviation operations, that's kind of a major for somebody that knows they want to get into aviation, but they don't know exactly what they want to do in aviation. So it's kind of a more broad-brushed look at the aviation industry. There's air traffic control, which is a preparation for folks that want to become an air traffic controller sometime in the future, and prepares them for here in the United States to go out to Oklahoma City and take the FAA knowledge test to be able to get into ATC school. There's aviation security, and that's really for somebody who has a little bit of a law enforcement interest. So somebody that might be interested in going into Homeland Security or their local sheriff's office, aviation division, air marshals, that kind of thing. And then the last one is professional pilot. And that's really for somebody that is pretty much set on, I'm going to be a professional pilot. And in that major alone, the actual flying training is required. So it's that's really kind of aimed at the flying world. The other four majors that are up there all have enough electives in them that students can take as much or as little flying as they want. Some just want to become a private pilot so they can fly recreationally, but others want to be a professional pilot, but they don't want to only study flying. So they'll take like an aviation operations, and then in their electives, they'll take all the flying training they need. The last one that's listed, we also have a 2-year degree. It's an AA with a field of study of aviation. And really, again, that's pretty much a flying degree where the flying training is required. And some of the freshman and sophomore dialogues of learning are also included in that. All of our degrees here at Lynn, at least the aviation degrees, qualify for a restricted air transport pilot rating. The airport transport pilot rating is required here in the US for anyone to act as a crew member in a scheduled air carrier like an airline or a FedEx or something like that, or as the pilot in command of a corporate operator, so somebody that's flying a corporate jet. For our aviation management and aviation security and AA in aviation, that's a 1,250-hour restricted ATP. And then in aviation operations, air traffic control, and professional pilot, it's a 1,000-hour ATP, restricted ATP. The normal ATP, if they take another major like graphic design or education degree, would be 1,500 hours. So what these really does is this ATP rating, because it's required to move on and be a professional pilot, by taking off 250 or 500 hours, it just allows a student to go into the industry a little bit earlier. But you'll see, as you look at different aviation colleges around the US, that people will really bring up this 1,000-hour and 1,250 and 1,500 as kind of a way to measure one school against the other. And really, all it is it's dependent on how many credit hours of aviation study are included in the degree. If it's over 60, it's a 1,000-hour restricted ATP degree. If it's between 30 and 60, it's a 1,250-hour restricted ATP. So a lot of people kind of get hung up on those numbers. Just to give you an idea, my guys that I hire as flight instructors are getting between 500 and 600 hours a year. So really, the difference between 1,000 and 1,500 would be about 9 to 12 months. Difference between 1,000 and 1,250 would be about 4 to 5 months. Our flying training is in addition to our tuition. Again, when you're looking at different colleges in the U.S., about half of colleges that have aviation program charge for flying on a fee basis. So they'll assign a fee to a set of flying training to a course, and then they'll assess a fee for flying that goes along with that course. So if a person is just learning how to fly and they're in the private pilot course, they might take Private Pilot 1 and pay a $5,000 fee, and that would allow them to fly for a certain amount of time. And then if they didn't finish their license, they go to Private Pilot 2 and another $5,000 fee, and then again Private Pilot 3 and another $5,000 fee. The reason that we don't do that is because when you get to Private Pilot 3, or 4, it may be you only need 4 or 5 hours of flying to finish up your license. Well, but you still have to pay that $5,000 fee. So it ends up tending to overcharge the student. We are with the other half of the country, the other half of the colleges around the country, that we charge as pay as you go is our system. So when a person is actually learning to fly, if they go out and they fly 1 hour, they're only charged for 1 hour of flying and 1 hour of the instructor's time. So doing that, the prices that I have up here are sort of the maximum that somebody would see. For the private pilot license, which allows somebody to take passengers day or night anywhere in the United States outside of the clouds, it's about $13,000 to $15,000 extra. For the instrument rating is the next rating, and that allows you to take passengers in and out of the clouds anywhere in the United States day or night. And that's about $8,000 to $10,000. And then the commercial single engine and multi-engine rating is really what somebody needs to be able to go out and make money and be work for hire as a pilot. And that's a grand total of about, that is another 31,000. And when you start to mix all that stuff up together, it really comes out to somewhere between about $45,000 to $50,000 in addition to tuition to get that licensure to go be a professional pilot. That's not payable all up front. It's paid, like I said, as you go. So a student, it can be spread out over 3 or 4 years. And also it can be at the pace the student wants. I've had some students that wait to start until their sophomore year. I've had some students that didn't like mixing academics and flying, so they only flew in the summers. It really depends on the student. And some just fly all year round. The licensures that the students get here in the United States, they typically it can take it anywhere in the world and go to the equivalent of the US FAA in their home country and present their licenses, and they'll be issued a home license. I just had a student from India that went back and he did the same, exactly what I'm saying. He went back and got his Indian license from the government and is now flying for the Emirates airline in the UAE. We can also do the certified flight instructor instrument and multi-engine instrument rating for about $5,000. That's important because if you remember, I said you get to a commercial license, which has a licensure to be able to go be a professional pilot for hire, but you need to, and that usually ends up right around 200 hours, but you need, either 1,000 or 1,250 to be an airline pilot. So you have to build about 800 hours. And so what the typical career progression for somebody is to become a certified flight instructor and be paid while they're doing that time building. And then we can also do the airline transport pilot rating for it's about $4,000 for the airport transport pilot curriculum training program, which is required to be able to get the ATP. The ATP itself is about $3,000, and then the ATP CTP is about $4,000. We just got our final authorization to offer the ATP CTP, and we're the 25th organization in the United States to be able to do that. And then the nice thing about that is it allows us to offer the student an entire range of training to prepare them to go into the airlines. They don't have to go to any other school. On the very bottom down here, it talks about that we have a check ride pass rate of 98%. As I said, there's going to be different things that folks are going to look at to kind of compare colleges to colleges. The one apples to apples thing, the one thing that is common to all of the colleges in higher education is we all operate under the FAR or CFR Part 141. It's the regulation, federal regulation that governs our training syllabi. And every 2 years, everybody that has a 141 certificate has to renew that certificate with the FAA. And one of the main majors the FAA looks at to make sure that the school is still effective is what's called their check ride pass rate. That means that in that 2 years prior to renewal, the FAA looks at how many check rides you sent students for and how many students passed that check ride on the first try. The minimum required to renew your certificate is 80%. The national average is about 85%. And our check ride pass rate this last time was 98%. I've been here 20 years, and in the 10 renewals we've done, we've never had below 95% check ride pass rate. So again, that would be something that if you're asking a university about their program and a parent is asking, that would be something that they could say, okay, this is no kidding a one-to-one exact measure that they can compare two colleges and the training that the student's going to get between those two colleges. If a college is reluctant to tell you their check ride pass rate, that's kind of when a little bit of a red flag should come up. This is all available on the FAA website and it can be confirmed. And somebody that's going to kind of try to hide it is probably down in that 80 to 85% pass rate. We just bought a 6th Cessna 172. That's the airplane on the left side. Very standard trainer here in the United States. It's high wing, 4-seat, single engine airplane. Very forgiving, a great airplane to fly. We use that for the private pilot and the instrument rating, and then most of the time building and the commercial rating. It has I'll show a little bit later, has standard instrumentation. We have one Beechcraft Bonanza, the center picture there. It's a 6-passenger single engine complex airplane, meaning it has retractable gear and a variable speed propeller and movable flaps. It's required to have complex aircraft training to be able to get the commercial single engine rating. And then on the right there, we have a Diamond Twin Star light twin, 4-seat, 2-engine aircraft. And that's again, a complex aircraft. And that's for the multi-engine commercial rating and then the multi-engine instructor rating. The Cessna 172s and the Beechcraft Bonanza all have the standard round dial instrumentation, except for the two in the middle, the ADI and HSI are digital. But this allows a student to actually learn on an airplane that would be kind of an older style to what most people see in the modern airliners. The thing is that all the airliners that have the glass cockpits that you see when you walk in all have these kind of dials as backups in case something happens to the flat screens. It's much easier to learn on this and then transition up to the flat screens than it is to learn on the flat screens and then move back to steam gauges. The vast majority of aircraft in the world, though, do have these kind of instruments on them still. All our aircraft are what's called next-gen compliant, next generation. That's the new FAA navigation system that here in the United States that's going from land-based navigation to space-based. So it's allows aircraft to take much more direct routes to from point A to point B. They're not limited by where the navigation aids on the ground are anymore. It's all GPS based. So much more efficient way of moving aircraft around and getting them from one airport to the next. They'll have the automated dependent surveillance broadcast in and out capability. The ADS-B allows aircraft to automatically couple up with all the aircraft that are around them, so all the airplanes know where they are in relation to each other. And when they're coupled with the autopilot, they can actually automatically do avoidance to avoid mid-airs. It also allows for the presentation in the cockpit of all the airplanes around you, which increases the situational awareness of the pilots that are flying. It also allows us to have weather in the aircraft, so it's instead of having the weight of a weather radar, we get through ADS-B, we get about a 7-second delayed weather radar presentation, which is a great fuel saver because you don't have to have all that equipment on the airplane. The wide area augmentation system, that allows us to have kind of like a Wi-Fi in the airplane so that the students fly with an Apple iPad mini on their leg. It'll have all of their maps, their charts, the other aircraft that are around them, the weather, everything's right there available to them on the iPad in a slightly larger format than what is projected in the screens on the GPS. And I talked about the HSI and the ADI, and then when the students transition into the Diamond Twin Star, the light twin at the end of their training, that has the G1000 full digital displays like you see in the modern airliners. So the idea is that through their training, the students will be exposed to any kind of avionics, any kind of instrumentation mix that they'll see out in the industry. As far as our faculty, this is the inside of the small flight school building. In the little area over here, we have a Redbird advanced aircraft training device. Has limited motion, about 135-degree field of view in it. Very capable machine. One of the best things about learning to fly in South Florida is it's very flat and there's great weather and there's not anything to run into. But the biggest problem with learning to fly in South Florida is it's very flat and it's great weather and there's nothing to run into. So a lot of times people or students will go through, they'll get all their licensures here in South Florida, and suddenly the first time that they're in a valley in a snowstorm trying to land, they have 165 people behind them. It's not exactly the best thing. But in our AATD, the Redbird, but with a click of an iPad, we can move somebody from Boca Raton to flying into Vail in the middle of winter and trying to get into a valley in a snowstorm. So it kind of fills that gap of being able to expose the students to other areas of the world that they wouldn't normally be able to be trained for. Again, it allows our student to go out into the world as a much better and much more experienced pilot. We have me, the dean of the college. I have 2 faculty members that offer the teaching, and then I have several adjuncts that help out. I have a project manager that takes care of the students' financial needs, helps them with their registrations, that kind of thing. An operations specialist that actually helps that with all those kind of duties. I have a chief flight instructor. He's a graduate of Lynn University from 2007, has actually worked for us as a flight instructor ever since then, kind of moved up the ranks, was the assistant chief and now is our chief flight instructor. He's ATP rated. I have an assistant chief flight instructor who's also one of my faculty members, ex-military. He is actually dual rated both in helicopters and aircraft, and he's an ATP helicopters and is now getting his ATP fixed wing. And then I have 3 full-time flight instructors that are working for us. One is a graduate and is ATP qualified. The other 2 are very experienced flight instructors that we just happen to hire from the local economy. And then 8 part-time flight instructors. And in that mix, I have two United Airline pilots that are now on furlough and have both worked for us as flight instructors before. They both fly the 737-800. So it's a pretty experienced flight instruction staff. We have two locations on the Boca Airport. You can see on the map there, we're about 2 miles off campus. It's a very short 5-minute car ride from campus to get over here. If a student doesn't have a car, I have probably a dozen students that Uber. It's a kind of a taxi service, that goes back and forth. It's about $2 each way. Very, very quick, very convenient. We have bikes on campus that the students can rent for free or get on loan, I guess, by the mailroom. And I've even had some students that will walk over. Or the most common thing is if a student doesn't have a car, we're so busy with flying that there's always another student that's driving over or coming over somehow so they can just hop a ride. On the airport, we have two locations. On the north end of the runway is the flight school I had showed before, the picture on the top. And then where I'm sitting right now is in the pink building at midfield, about 3,000 feet down the ramp. On the third floor, that back office kind of, I don't know if you can see the pointer right in here, that's me. It makes it convenient for the students. And that's where I have my faculty. We have a small classroom. My project manager and OpSpec actually work over here. It's nice because the students, when they come over flying or if they need to see us, we're not split between campus and the airport. Everything's here on the airport. Again, it's halfway down the runway, so 3,000 feet away from the other building. So it's just a short walk down the ramp to come over and ask questions and see us if they need to. Our graduates have here in the United States placed with all the major airlines, all the major regional airlines. We have several that have gone on to corporate operators and then also to the FAA, some large airports, Atlanta Hartsfield, Palm Beach International, Fort Lauderdale International, Miami International. And then even Gulfstream Aerospace, that's a mainframe manufacturer of very large corporate jets. We have one young lady who's now their regional compliance officer. So she's down on probably about the third rung of the management of the entire Gulfstream operation. So a very good success with getting our students hired. Foreign students, when they go back to home country, I have students that are flying with just about every major airline in South America. Over in y'all's neck of the woods, India, China, the Pac Rim. Have several students that have gone back there flying with the operations there. And then again in Europe the same way with all the major airlines there.